I always thought family was supposed to be your safe place, the people you could trust when the whole world turned its back on you. My name is Margaret Thompson, but everyone calls me Maggie. I was born and raised in New Jersey, worked hard alongside my late husband for decades, and by the grace of God, we built something most people only dream of. Together, we created a real estate empire that grew into a net worth of over $2.7 billion. When my husband passed away 5 years ago, my world shattered. I had money, yes, but the bed was empty, the mornings were cold, and silence filled the mansion we once called home. My son Daniel was all I had left, and I poured every ounce of love and trust into him. That's probably why I let my guard down around his wife, Olivia. Olivia was beautiful in the kind of way that draws attention in a crowded room. Blonde hair, sharp blue eyes, and a smile that seemed so sweet at first. But now, looking back, I realize it was more like the grin of a wolf hiding among sheep. From the beginning, something about her felt off. She was charming, but it was the kind of charm you practice in the mirror. Still, I tried to embrace her. She was Daniel's choice, and I wanted my son to be happy. I took her shopping, hosted dinner parties, even gave her access to family accounts when she claimed she wanted to help with finances. I never imagined that kindness could turn into the knife she'd later twist into my back. The night it all changed was in early spring. New Jersey was just shaking off the last of winter, the river still running cold and sharp with melting ice. Daniel and Olivia had invited me out to the old Riverside Park where we used to picnic when Daniel was a boy. It felt nostalgic, almost healing. "Come on, Mom," Daniel had said with a smile. "It'll be good for us. You've been cooped up in that big house too long," I agreed. I thought it was just another family outing. I couldn't have been more wrong. We walked along the boardwalk, laughing lightly at old stories. Olivia walked slightly behind us, her heels clicking against the wooden planks. I remember glancing back once. She was staring at me, not smiling, just staring. A shiver ran through me, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was tired. When we reached the edge of the river, Daniel got a call. He stepped away, phone pressed to his ear, leaving me alone with Olivia. That's when it happened. "Maggie," she said, her voice suddenly low, stripped of its fake sweetness. "You know you've lived long enough, right?" I blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" She smiled, but it wasn't kind. $2.7 billion. That's what your estate is worth. And guess who it's all going to when you're gone? Before I could process the horror of her words, she shoved me. Hard. My body pitched forward, arms flailing as I tumbled off the edge of the boardwalk. The freezing water swallowed me whole, shocking my lungs with its icy grip. I remember gasping, choking, kicking desperately as the current dragged me under. I should have died that night. But fate, or maybe my husband watching over me, wasn't ready to let me go. Somehow I managed to grab onto a branch near the shore. My lungs burned, my body trembled, but I hauled myself out, coughing and shivering, hidden by the shadows of the trees. When I looked back toward the boardwalk, I saw Olivia standing there, peering into the water. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't calling for help. She was calm. And when Daniel returned, she clutched his arm and whispered something I couldn't hear. I realized, with a pain sharper than the icy water in my chest, that Olivia had planned it. She wanted me gone. And if she could manipulate Daniel into believing whatever lie she spun, then she might just succeed in stealing everything my husband and I built. That night, as I stumbled home soaked and broken, I made myself a promise. I would not be her victim. I would not let Olivia take what wasn't hers. She thought I was weak, old, and easy to erase. She had no idea who she was dealing with. This wasn't just going to be survival. This was going to be revenge. I barely slept that night. My body ached from the cold water, my throat burned from choking, and my mind replayed Olivia's words over and over again. "You've lived long enough. $2.7 billion. The venom in her voice still rang in my ears. I sat by the fireplace in my silk robe, clutching a blanket and staring into the flames. I kept asking myself one question. Did Daniel know? Was my son in on it? Or was Olivia pulling the strings all on her own? By morning, I had my answer, or at least a clue. Daniel came over with Olivia. He looked concerned, almost guilty. "Mom," he said, "Olivia told me you slipped on the boardwalk last night. She was terrified." "Why didn't you answer your phone?" "We were calling you all night." I swallowed hard, studying his face. His eyes were soft, his brow furrowed. That wasn't the face of a man plotting to kill his mother. But Olivia, she sat next to him, her hand on his knee, her eyes darting at me like daggers. "Oh," I whispered, feigning weakness. "Yes, I slipped. I didn't want to worry you, Daniel. I just came home, changed, and went straight to bed." Olivia's lips twitched, just for a second. She knew I was lying, but she couldn't call me out without exposing herself. That was the moment I realized something vital. Olivia thought she had the upper hand. She believed I was too old, too fragile, too blind to see what was happening. She didn't realize I had decades of experience in business, negotiations, and survival. My entire life had been about fighting, against men who underestimated me, competitors who wanted to crush me, bankers who didn't believe in a woman running a billion-dollar empire. Olivia Carter was just another obstacle, and I was going to crush her. But revenge, I knew, required patience. If I confronted her too soon, Daniel might take her side. I had to make her reveal herself in front of him. I had to let her dig her own grave, so I started planning. The first step was to make Olivia comfortable, to make her think I was oblivious. I invited them to dinner at my mansion, cooked her favorite meal, poured her wine, and even laughed at her shallow stories. She smiled that fake smile, probably thinking I was desperate to keep her approval, but I was watching. Every glance, every smirk, every time her hand squeezed Daniel's arm a little too tightly, I noticed. I began to catalog her weaknesses the way I once studied rivals in boardroom wars, and I found one almost immediately. Olivia had a taste for luxury, not just the kind Daniel's salary could afford, but the kind only billions could buy. Designer handbags, jewels, weekends in the Hamptons. I could see it in her eyes whenever she looked at my diamond necklace or ran her hand across the marble counters in my kitchen. Greed wasn't just her motive. It was her flaw. So I fed it. "Olivia," I said one night as I poured her another glass of champagne, "you should help me manage some of the family accounts. You're young, stylish, and in tune with modern trends. Maybe you can bring fresh ideas to the portfolio." Her eyes widened. "Really? You'd trust me with that?" I smiled sweetly. "Of course, dear. Your family." I almost laughed at how easily she took the bait. Within a week, she was practically begging Daniel to get more involved with the finances. She wanted access, and I was going to let her believe she had it, but while she thought she was climbing the ladder, I was setting traps. I had my lawyers draft documents, hidden clauses, and safeguards that she couldn't possibly understand. Every account I let her peek into was carefully curated to track her moves. If she tried to steal, I'd have proof. The second step of my plan was more personal. I started confiding in Daniel. Late-night phone calls, lunches together, quiet walks in the park, just me and my son. I told him stories of his father, reminded him of the values we raised him with, and gently planted seeds of doubt about Olivia. Nothing direct, nothing accusatory. Just enough to make him wonder if his wife's love was really love at all. One night, while Olivia was busy scrolling through luxury travel sites, Daniel asked me quietly, "Mom, do you really think she loves me? Or does she love everything else?" My heart broke for him, but I knew it was working. Olivia's mask was starting to slip, and Daniel was beginning to see the cracks. Still, I couldn't let my guard down. Olivia wasn't stupid. She was dangerous, and I had no doubt she'd try again. The river had failed, but greedy people never give up after one attempt, and I was right. 2 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night to the faint smell of gas. My mansion has state-of-the-art alarms, but someone had tampered with them. I stumbled to the kitchen and found the stove burners open, gas filling the air. My hands shook as I turned them off and opened the windows, and then I heard it. A whisper of footsteps retreating down the hallway. I froze, listening. The back door creaked open. By the time I rushed over, the yard was empty. But lying on the patio, half buried in the dirt, was a single high-heeled shoe, Olivia's shoe. My blood boiled. She had tried again. First the river, now this. She wanted me gone so badly, she was willing to blow up the house I'd built with my husband. That night, as I sat in the dark with the shoe in my hand, my fear burned away, replaced with something far stronger. This wasn't just about protecting my fortune anymore. This was about war, and in war, I never lose. I stared at that high-heeled shoe all night. Turning it over in my hands, I could still see the faint scratches on the sole, proof she had run across my stone patio in a hurry. Olivia was bold, reckless even. But recklessness, I knew, always led to mistakes. By morning, I had made my decision. It was time to stop merely surviving. It was time to play offense. The first thing I did was call my attorney, Richard Hale, a man I'd trusted for 20 years. He had helped my husband and me through countless deals, and he was sharp enough to see through any scam. "Richard," I said, lowering my voice, "I need you to set up a trust, quietly, and I need it to look like I'm planning to move the majority of my estate." There was a pause. "Is there a reason you want to bait your daughter-in-law, Margaret?" I almost smiled. He knew me too well. "Let's just say Olivia's shown her true colors. I want her to think she's winning. I want her desperate." Within days, paperwork was drafted. Fake documents, staged meetings, even false account balances. Olivia thought she was getting insider access to my fortune, when in reality, every move she made was being monitored and recorded. Meanwhile, I kept up the act. I played the frail old woman. I let her drive me to appointments, let her carry my handbag, even pretended to get tired easily when we went out. She soaked it up, probably thinking I was becoming dependent on her. What she didn't realize was that I had installed new security cameras all around the house, cameras she couldn't see. Every time she lingered near my office desk, every time she tried to peek into my safe, I had it all on video. Still, I needed more than just proof. I needed Daniel to see it with his own eyes. So I devised a plan. I invited them both to a private dinner at my estate. Just the three of us, no staff, no interruptions. I set the table with crystal glasses and fine china, lit the candles, and wore my late husband's favorite emerald necklace, the one Olivia had been eyeing for months. The evening began smoothly. Olivia laughed a little too loudly at Daniel's jokes, her hand constantly brushing his arm. But I could see the hunger in her eyes every time they flicked to my necklace. After dinner, I poured wine and excused myself to the bathroom. Only I didn't go. Instead, I slipped into my office where the security monitors were hidden behind a cabinet. From there, I watched. Just as I predicted, Olivia couldn't resist. The moment I was out of the room, she leaned closer to Daniel. "Darling," she whispered, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Don't you think it's time your mother started simplifying things? She's getting older. Managing all this must be exhausting for her." Daniel frowned. "She seems fine to me." Olivia's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "Of course she does. She hides it well. But imagine how much easier life would be if we handled the estate. We could protect her, take care of her, and when the time comes..." She let the words hang, heavy and poisonous. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Olivia, are you saying what I think you're saying?" She reached for his hand. "I'm saying we need to think about our future. About the billions that will one day be ours." I felt my chest tighten, both with rage and heartbreak. My son's wife wasn't even hiding it anymore. She wanted me gone, sooner rather than later. But the moment I had been waiting for came just minutes later. When Daniel went to fetch more wine from the cellar, Olivia's eyes darted to my necklace. Slowly, carefully, she reached across the table, unclasped the chain from behind, and slipped the emerald necklace into her clutch. I had her. The cameras caught everything, every gleam of greed in her eyes. And when I returned, feigning ignorance, I noticed her sitting straighter, her lips pressed in a smug little smile. She thought she had just stolen a fortune, but the necklace she took wasn't real. I had switched it earlier with a flawless replica. The genuine piece was locked away in a safe only I could access. That night, after they left, Daniel kissed my cheek and promised to call in the morning. Olivia barely looked at me, too busy clutching her handbag like it held the crown jewels. As I watched their car disappear down the driveway, I whispered to myself, "Checkmate is coming, Olivia. You won't see it until it's too late." But what I didn't know then was that Olivia had one more move planned, a move far more dangerous than theft. A move that would push this silent war into deadly territory, because the next morning, I woke up to police cars pulling into my driveway, and they were holding a warrant. The flashing blue and red lights painted my driveway in chaos. My stomach dropped as I watched two uniformed officers step out of their patrol car. They weren't here for a courtesy call. They were here with purpose. "Mrs. Thompson?" one officer asked, his hand resting on a folded sheet of paper. "We have a warrant to search your home." I forced a calm smile, though my heart thundered in my chest. A warrant? On what grounds? The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. We received a tip about financial misconduct, possible fraud, money laundering, and elder neglect. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Elder neglect? Who could have possibly filed such nonsense? Then it hit me like a brick. Olivia. She wasn't just trying to kill me physically, she was trying to destroy me legally. If she could paint me as incompetent, as some senile old woman mismanaging billions, she could push the courts into handing control of the estate to Daniel, and by extension, her. But what Olivia underestimated was that I had been playing this game long before she ever set foot in my family. Of course, officers, I said sweetly, stepping aside. Do what you must. They combed through my home, rifling through documents, opening drawers, snapping photos. I followed quietly, hands clasped, until one of them opened the safe in my office. My heart clenched, not because of what was inside, but because of what wasn't, the fake financial statements. The staged accounts Richard and I had planted for Olivia to stumble across. If she had handed those to the authorities, they'd think I was hiding millions overseas. I let the officer flip through the binders, my face unreadable. When he finally looked at me, he raised an eyebrow. These accounts, they look suspicious. Suspicious? I chuckled lightly, as though amused by a child's drawing. Officers, those are test portfolios. Mock accounts. I use them when training interns at my foundation. You'll notice every balance ends in repeating numbers, 111, 222, 333. Hardly a coincidence. They frowned, flipping through again. Sure enough, the details were too perfect, too artificial. It was obvious, if you were sharp enough, that they weren't real. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Someone gave you those, didn't they? Someone who wants to hurt me. The officers stiffened, but neither denied it. They left half an hour later, empty-handed, muttering about miscommunication. The moment their cars rolled off my property, I dialed Richard. She's escalating, I said, my voice trembling with contained fury. She's using the law now, Richard sighed. Then it's time to escalate back. You've got proof she tried to kill you. You've got video of her stealing. Margaret, we could go to the police first. But I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. Not yet. Daniel still doesn't see her for who she is. If I go to the police, she'll twist it. She'll make him believe I'm losing my mind. Silence hung for a moment. Then Richard said, "So what's your move?" I smiled coldly. We turn her greed into her downfall. She thinks she's playing chess, but I've been playing poker all along. That week, I arranged for an exclusive investment opportunity. I told Olivia I had insider access to a lucrative land deal in Florida, worth hundreds of millions. I spun a tale of permits, developers, and skyrocketing returns. Her eyes sparkled like a child staring at candy. If you want to be part of this family's legacy, I told her, lowering my voice conspiratorially, you need to prove you can handle real investments. Show me initiative. She took the bait. Within 48 hours, Olivia had liquidated a large portion of her personal accounts. Money Daniel had no idea she even had. She funneled it into what she thought was a secret deal. In reality, it was a shell account tied directly back to her. I had the receipts. I had the recordings. And soon I'd have the evidence that she was embezzling funds, not me. But Olivia wasn't going to roll over easily. She must have sensed I was one step ahead, because just as my trap began to tighten, she made her boldest move yet. One evening, Daniel called me, his voice tight with confusion. Mom? Olivia says you've been acting strange. She says you accused her of stealing jewelry. She swears she was only trying to help you. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. And do you believe her, Daniel? There was a pause. I don't know what to believe anymore. She said if I don't get control of the estate soon, you'll end up squandering everything Dad built. Ah, there it was. The final card she was playing, turning my son against me. That night, I sat in my study, staring at the flickering candlelight. I knew the next move had to be bold, calculated, final. Olivia thought she had me cornered. But what she didn't know was that I had already set the stage for her ultimate downfall, because the very land deal she thought she was buying into. Tomorrow it would go public, and her name would be all over it, not as an investor, but as the con artist who tried to defraud the Thompson fortune. For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to smile. Checkmate was almost here. The morning the Florida land deal went public, I sat at the kitchen table with my tea, calm for the first time in weeks. My lawyers had filed the paperwork carefully. My accountants had ensured every trail was clean, and most importantly, every thread pointed back to Olivia. By noon, the news broke. Headlines splashed across local sites: suspicious investment scheme under scrutiny, New Jersey heiress targeted. It was subtle, not explosive, yet. But within hours, reporters began sniffing around, asking questions. And in every document they found, one name kept popping up: Olivia Carter. That afternoon, Daniel stormed into my mansion, Olivia trailing behind him, her face pale but defiant. "Mom," Daniel said sharply, "what the hell is going on?" "Reporters are calling me. They're saying Olivia is involved in some fraudulent deal linked to your estate." I sipped my tea slowly, then set the cup down. "Is that what they're saying? Or is that what Olivia told them to say?" Olivia's eyes narrowed. "You're framing me. You set me up." I stood, meeting her glare head-on. "Set you up? Olivia, I don't need to set you up. You walked straight into your own trap the moment you let greed blind you." Daniel looked between us, confused. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a sleek black folder. Inside were glossy photographs, bank receipts, and, most damning of all, still shots from my hidden cameras. Olivia's face froze as I slid them across the table. Daniel picked them up one by one. The footage of Olivia stealing the emerald necklace. The receipts of her transferring funds into the fake Florida account. The time-stamped security feed showing her lingering by my safe. Daniel's face drained of color. "Olivia, what is this?" She tried to recover, her voice shrill. "She planted this. She's manipulating you, Daniel. Can't you see?" She's old, paranoid. But her words faltered as Daniel stared at the papers, his hands trembling. "These are time-stamped, Olivia. That's you. That's your handwriting, my God." He looked up at her, his voice breaking. "Were you trying to kill my mother?" Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Olivia's lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, her mask slipped completely, and I saw the real her. Cold, calculating, cornered. Daniel shoved the folder back onto the table, his eyes burning with betrayal. "You shoved her into the river, didn't you? You tampered with the stove. Jesus, Olivia, I defended you. I loved you." Tears welled in his eyes as he turned away, his shoulders shaking. Olivia reached for him, but he pulled back violently, disgust written all over his face. I almost pitied her in that moment. Almost. But then Olivia's composure cracked. She grabbed her clutch and hissed, "You think this is over? You think you've won? I'm not going down like this." She stormed toward the door, but before she could leave, Daniel blocked her path. His voice was firm now, strong in a way I hadn't heard in years. "You're not going anywhere. I'm calling the police." Olivia froze, her eyes flashing with panic. She turned back to me, her voice trembling with venom. "This isn't revenge, Maggie. This is cruelty. You're destroying me." I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. "No, Olivia. You destroyed yourself. You let greed consume you. You thought you could shove me into a river and walk away with everything my husband and I built. But you underestimated me." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't speak. Daniel's phone was already in his hand, dialing. Within 20 minutes, squad cars once again filled my driveway. But this time, they weren't here for me. They were here for her. I watched from the doorway as the officers cuffed Olivia, reading her rights. She spat curses at me, screamed Daniel's name, swore she'd fight this. But her voice grew smaller with every step toward the car, and then she was gone. Daniel stood beside me, silent, his face pale with shock. For a long moment, we said nothing. Then finally, he whispered, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it." I didn't want to see it. I rested a hand on his shoulder. "She fooled you, Daniel. She fooled us all. But it's over now. At least that's what I thought. But revenge stories never end so cleanly. Because a week later, as I read the morning paper, a headline froze my blood. Olivia Carter released on bail, claims she's the real victim of Thompson fortune. My teacup shattered in my hand. The war wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The headline blared across the page like a cruel joke. Olivia Carter released on bail, claims. She's the real victim of Thompson fortune. I sat at my breakfast nook, the shards of my broken teacup glittering like sharp little truths against the hardwood floor. My pulse hammered, not with fear this time, but with fury. Olivia wasn't beaten. She was clawing her way back, desperate to twist the narrative, painting herself as some fragile daughter-in-law bullied by the cold, vindictive mother-in-law with billions. And I knew exactly how America loved a sob story. If I didn't finish this properly, she'd drag my name through the mud, ruin Daniel's reputation, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to steal the empire she was still obsessed with. Wouldn't let her, not after the river, not after the pills, not after every whispered lie she planted in my son's ear. This war would end, and it would end with her broken beyond repair. Olivia's first move was a press conference. I watched from my den as she stood outside her lawyer's office, crocodile tears glistening under the flash of cameras. "She framed me," Olivia said, her voice quivering with rehearsed fragility. "Margaret Thompson is cruel, paranoid, and greedy. She couldn't stand the thought of losing her grip on the family fortune. She's using her power to destroy me because I dared to love her son." The reporters leaned in, eating up every word. She wore white, the color of innocence, and her makeup was flawless, giving her the glow of a saintly victim. But I had something she didn't: the truth and a plan. 3 days later, the courtroom was packed. Olivia strutted in like she was walking a red carpet, hand in hand with her high-profile attorney, her chin tilted arrogantly. Daniel sat beside me, his face pale but resolute. When the judge called my name, I rose slowly, deliberately, every movement calm and poised. My lawyers had advised me to stick to facts, but I had prepared something more, something devastating. I took the stand, my voice steady as I described the river incident, the tampered stove, the stolen necklace. Every word was backed by evidence, the video stills, the receipts, the timestamps. But then I did something unexpected. I pulled out a USB drive. "Your Honor," I said softly, "I have one more piece of evidence." The screen flickered to life. The grainy footage played, captured by the nanny cam I had hidden weeks ago. The courtroom gasped. There was Olivia, in full clarity, hovering over my teacup, slipping something into it. A small white pill. She glanced around nervously, then smirked, a smirk that, when frozen on the screen, made her look less like a victim and more like the predator she truly was. The silence in the courtroom was electric. Olivia shot to her feet, screaming, "It's fake!" She edited it. "She's framing me!" But her lawyer's face had gone pale. He knew. Everyone knew. The judge banged the gavel. "Order, sit down, Mrs. Carter." But Olivia couldn't stop unraveling. She lunged at me, her manicured nails flashing like claws, shrieking, "You old witch! You ruined everything! That money should have been mine." Gasps filled the room. 2 bailiffs restrained her, dragging her back as she kicked and spat, her mask completely gone. And in that moment, I saw it. The shift. The reporters scribbling furiously, the jurors' eyes wide. The judge's jaw tightening. She had just buried herself. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty, on all counts. Attempted murder, fraud, theft, as they led her away in chains. Olivia's eyes locked on mine, burning with hatred. "This isn't over," she screamed. "I'll come back. I'll destroy you." But her voice was hoarse, desperate, hollow, because we both knew it was over. Weeks later, the house felt lighter, as though a storm had finally passed. Daniel visited often, remorse etched into his features, but slowly the old warmth began to return. He sat with me one evening on the porch, the New Jersey autumn painting the trees in shades of fire. "Mom," he said quietly, "how did you know? How did you have the strength to fight her?" I looked out at the horizon, the cool breeze brushing against my skin. Because Daniel, she thought she was playing a game of power. But this wasn't a game. This was survival. And when someone shoves you into a river, you learn fast how to swim. He took my hand, squeezing it tightly, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. The empire was safe. My son was safe, and Olivia Carter, the woman who thought she could steal my life, my fortune, my legacy, was nothing more than a caged shadow, screaming into the void. But revenge has a taste, sharp and intoxicating. And as I sat there that night, sipping my tea, I realized something. I hadn't just survived Olivia, I had destroyed her, and I would never, ever apologize for it. The end.